Good morning, Wall Street winners. It is Wednesday, December 4th, and we have just had some positive jobs numbers on the private jobs front come out from ADP. So 146 U.S. private companies added jobs in November, showing the ADP data. The estimate was for 150,000. So that is definitely positive news on that front. And if we take a look at how that's affecting the futures, everything is green. So we've got all indices in the U.S., the Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ in the green. The NASDAQ is up over 0.5%, and the Dow is approaching 0.5%. So looks like it's going to be off to a good start, which means Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday have been some pretty great days for the different indices as we start the month of December, and into this Santa Claus rally. So if we take a look here at crude has now crossed the $70 a barrel mark, and a lot of crude stocks got pulled back yesterday. So I expect there could be a catch-up that takes place today. If crude continues to move forward and stays above 70, I think you could see the oil stocks get a bid higher, and those stock prices move higher along with crude staying above 70 a barrel for January 25th futures. We've got the NASDAQ up, obviously. The VIX is down close to 13. Positive sign around risk sentiment in that volatility index. And if we scroll down through our list, we had a few companies report this morning. So Dollar General and Dollar Tree both reported this morning. I haven't looked at the earnings, but I'm assuming they're positive because Dollar Tree and Dollar General are both up in the pre-market session. You can see Dollar General here. I don't follow Dollar Tree, but we could certainly look that one up at the same time. This one is up over 1% in the pre-market. So that is beating the index, which tells me that the earnings were probably positive. Interesting that with those discount retailers being up, the likes of Walmart and Costco are down. Lulu is down in the pre-market, although it's been climbing steadily. It's got earnings coming up tomorrow. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. I think it's climbed pretty high into earnings. So even if it has some positive earnings, it's unlikely from my perspective that it's going to continue to jump higher because of its movement upwards into earnings. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I would be staying away from that based on what I deem to be the risk associated with that purchase. Walmart is up in the mid-93s, so it's done very well after earnings, climbing from the low 80s. You've even got Couche-Tard right below it at 83. It was at 78 last week. Home Depot up near 430. It looks like it's pulling back a little in the pre-market. Nike off in the pre-market a significant amount, almost 2%. And then the healthcare stocks just kind of hovering in the range. They're kind of range bound right now until we get some news on that, maybe from the new administration, maybe from earnings, but something has to be announced for those things to start to move. We move down to transport, and not much going on there. I'm going to stay away from transport right now. We look at oil, and it's almost red across the screen in the pre-market, with a few exceptions down near the bottom there with HP and SLB, but red across the board as we look at some of these major oil companies. I think this is going to turn. I mean, Valero yesterday had a pretty dismal day, and crude was on its way up. I think there's an opportunity for this to turn around and Valero to get up to 140 today, maybe even cross through 140 on its way to 141. I do believe we're going to see some kind of jump and spike in these crude stocks, these oil stocks, before the end of January. And I think now is just a good time to be looking at those and potentially considering adding some to your portfolio. Now, that said, the tech sector cannot be avoided right now. It is just the hottest sector out there. It was financials for a week or so. It's now back to tech. And As you can see here, Micron's up almost $2 in the pre-market. Micron's set to announce in 14 days. So it's one of the later companies to announce every quarter. And I think the results are going to be pretty fantastic from Micron. We're hearing a lot about a PC refresh cycle starting. We've got Christmas. We had the back to school component in September for students that need new PCs. I think we're going to see some really strong earnings out of Micron and a good future forecast. CrowdStrike has just been taken off. So $3 yesterday, up $4 in the pre-market today. Palantir up almost $5 yesterday. Now it's $71. This stock has been a rocket ship. I am skeptical on this based on the price earnings at 354 times. I mean, I know this company is growing. I know it's just been added to the S&P 500 this year. I know there's certainly a lot of momentum behind AI stocks, but 354 times earnings is just, it's out of my expectations of reality. So I'm staying away from Palantir, expecting a pretty massive pullback. Like we could be talking about a $20 to $30 pullback if if earnings in the future are a miss from this company. Now, I'm not saying they will be, but they really have to execute well to maintain that kind of forward price earnings ratio. We scroll down further. CRM announced yesterday. This one boggled my mind. They announced that they beat on earnings, they beat on revenue, but not significantly, like a lot of other companies whose stock then fell due to future forecast. But they finally started talking about their AI agent. And that AI conversation was really the only differentiator I could pull out of their earnings report this quarter versus the past two. And this stock has shot up 12%. So I hope you bought some yesterday when we talked about it or the day before. I hope you made a lot of money. I would sell at this point if I own some Salesforce and take my profits because I don't believe that it's going to stay up at that level. I think it has to pull back from a 12% bump. Palo Alto, below it, PanW, had a good day yesterday. It's up again today. This one's just, I'm going to call it a slow creeper. I mean, if we look at year to date, this thing is just slowly making its way back from April. It had bad earnings back in February, and it's just slowly climbed back all the way up. And has now returned 33% year to date. So that's a pretty decent return on that stock. Net was off yesterday, Cloudflare, but it is coming back into what looks like the 207, 208 area. Sorry, 107, 108 today, up 251 in the pre-market. And again, all of that can change, but we're about 40 minutes away from the market open. Microsoft up at 430. Nothing exciting there from my perspective. I mean, it's kind of in a range, and until it gets out of that range, it's something that I'm going to just stay away from because I think it'll have just as much of a chance of pulling back as it will of jumping forward. You've got ARM, which has been doing well. It's still, in my opinion, like CRM now, way overpriced. On Semi fell off yesterday, down $4. That's huge on a $70 stock. Looks like it's recovering a little bit today, but we'll keep an eye on that. AMD was off slightly yesterday, really finished pretty much even, but looks like it's going to make that up today. At the open. Workday is starting to come back. This is one that I would start to take a look at now. So Workday fell off the charts with its earnings recently. It's now starting to come back. I'd say that getting back into the 300s is highly likely for this stock, and at where it is at 257 might be an interesting entry point to catch that ride back up. Lam Research, again, one of those semi stocks, looks like it could get up to 80, maybe cross the 80 barrier. I think this is going to be a $100 stock by the end of January. So that's one that I'm holding for the long term there. And then scrolling down, Tesla off yesterday, recovering a little. Meta, huge day yesterday. So I was back buying Meta a few weeks ago in the 550s, and I sold most of my Meta holdings yesterday as it entered above 600, and that paid for Christmas. So that was a great little spike over 2 days, about $20 a day increase. Looks like it's pulling back slightly, but based on the NASDAQ, I'd expect it might get up into the 620s today. So I may have sold a little bit early, but I took my profits, and I am just going to sit on the sidelines on that one for the time being. NVIDIA was down in the 139s yesterday, got up to 140. It looks like it's going to get up into the mid 140s today. Still a super solid buy, in my opinion. It's driving the AI movement. There are other companies now in the process of developing competing chips, but they just don't have the track record that NVIDIA does. They don't have the experience that NVIDIA does. They don't have the complementary software. There's so many aspects to this semiconductor space that they are the market leader in, that will be so hard to compete against, that I'm sticking with NVIDIA. Google, 173, it's got to get back into the mid 180s, maybe even 190s. I'm just waiting for that little pop to happen. And I think it's that Department of Justice case kind of hanging over the head of Google. But I expect that by the early part of the Trump administration and a change at the Department of Justice, that case is going to go away and this stock's going to pop up into the 200s. So I'm definitely holding that. We've got Adobe with earnings out in 7 days. So a week today, we're going to hear from Adobe. I think the earnings from Adobe are going to be similar to those from CRM, and I think we're going to see a similar spike. If we don't see Adobe up in the high 500s, maybe even touching 600 by this time, by tomorrow of next week, so by Thursday of next week, I would be very surprised, very surprised. And then TSM was down in the low 180s just last week. It's now going to be up into the 200s, which we called last week. So I'm hoping you got into some TSM. And again, another company that has had phenomenal earnings. It's now over 200 in the pre-market, and it could go, I'd say, as high as 210. So keep an eye on that one. And then we get into financials. It was a red day yesterday. It looks like it should be. I would think with the Dow where it should be a green day today, but everything here other than Goldman is looking red. We do have some earnings out tomorrow, one from TD, and we have another bank reporting tomorrow, and that's CIBC. So we'll see what comes out of these Canadian banks, but the Canadian economy is sputtering. So when the economy sputters, condo market is in a state of disarray and collapse in Toronto and across the country. Employment isn't bad, but it isn't great. The amount of homeless we have in this country is the highest I've ever seen it. Everything is at a premium price-wise. I think it's more expensive to live in Toronto than it is in Manhattan right now, based on the price of goods on the shelves. It has just gotten to a point of ridiculousness in terms of cost, and it makes it extremely hard for the average family to get by and just cover the cost of the needs to operate a household. So I really hope that turns. I hope we can see a change in government to have that turn, and a change in mentality. But we're not there right now. So we have to work towards that as a common goal. So that's where we are today. I hope you good luck in your trades today. If you're liking these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave me a